All right, Marcus, we're talking about a night that still echoes through the halls of boxing history. August 16th, 2005, MGM Grand, Las Vegas. The undisputed middleweight championship. Bernard the Executioner Hopkins, the seemingly invincible veteran, against the young lion, Jermain Bad Intentions Taylor. And man, did this one leave a bitter taste for a lot of people.
Bitter taste? Judge, it left a gaping wound. People still talk about this fight like it happened yesterday, and for good reason. Bernard Hopkins, the alien, a future Hall of Famer, walked into that ring as the undisputed champion, a man who hadn't lost in over a decade. And he walked out. Well, he walked out without his belts, but everyone knew he won that fight. Everyone felt he won that fight.
That feeling is what makes it so interesting, isn't it? On paper, Taylor got the split decision. 115-113 for Taylor, 116-112 for Hopkins. And then the deciding card, 115-113 for Taylor again. So it was close, numerically. But I think what you're getting at, Marcus, is the optics. The way the fight unfolded visually, round by round.
Exactly, the optics! You've got Hopkins, the master strategist, the guy who could make you miss and make you pay. He was 40 years old, mind you, still operating at an elite level, defending his titles for the 20th time. And Taylor, he was undefeated, young, strong, and Olympic medalist, but he was stepping into a whole different league against Hopkins. He was supposed to be the future, but Hopkins was still the present, and he was schooling him, plain and simple.
Let's break down that schooling a bit, though. Taylor started fast, didn't he? Those early rounds, I remember Taylor pushing the pace, landing some clean shots. He was trying to establish his presence, maybe catching Hopkins a little flat-footed in the opening exchanges. He had that youthful exuberance, the power. He wanted to make a statement.
He did. And that's fair. Those first 2, maybe 3 rounds, Taylor was aggressive. He had the burst, the speed. But this is Bernard Hopkins we're talking about. He's not a guy you can just steamroll for 12 rounds. Hopkins adapted. He started to time Taylor, catch him coming in, make him pay for his mistakes. It was classic Hopkins. Slow burn, tactical masterclass.
That's where the nuance comes in for the judges, I think. When Taylor was throwing, he was throwing with conviction. But Hopkins was the one landing the cleaner, more effective shots in the mid to late rounds. He was controlling the distance, clinching when necessary, and delivering those sneaky right hands and body shots that sap an opponent's will. It wasn't always flashy, but it was effective.
Effective? It was surgical. I mean, Hopkins was dictating the tempo. He was making Taylor miss, making him look wild at times. Taylor would have these flurries, these bursts of activity, but a lot of them were blocked, or they weren't landing cleanly. Hopkins, on the other hand, every punch he threw, it seemed to have a purpose, a sting to it. He was chipping away, winning rounds clearly.
The statistics, if you look at them, are often cited to support both sides. CompuBox had Taylor landing slightly more punches overall, but Hopkins had a higher percentage. And as we always say, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality and effectiveness. The power punches, which often impress judges more, were pretty even. But again, the impact of Hopkins' shots seemed greater.
See, impact is the key word there. You could feel Hopkins' punches. You could see Taylor reacting to them. Taylor was younger, yes, but he looked like the fighter who was getting frustrated, who was trying to force things as the fight wore on. Hopkins just seemed calm, collected, in control. This was his house, you know? And then boom! They announce the decision, and the whole arena just goes silent, then erupts in boos.
That reaction, I remember it vividly. It was a shock. You had the HBO commentators, who are usually quite impartial, sounding genuinely surprised. Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant, Emmanuel Stewart, they all seemed to lean heavily towards Hopkins winning, and they weren't shy about expressing their disbelief when the cards were read. That's a strong indicator when the neutral observers are that taken aback.
And Merchant, man, he was practically beside himself. That's when you know something's rotten in Denmark, or in this case, Vegas. Hopkins himself, a guy who usually keeps his composure, was visibly upset. He felt robbed. And when a fighter of Hopkins' caliber, with his experience, tells you he got robbed, you listen. You really do.
But let's play devil's advocate for a moment. What about the argument that judges sometimes favor activity, even if it's less effective? Taylor was consistently active, often initiating exchanges, pushing forward. And it's also true that sometimes the champion needs to do more than just manage the fight. They need to clearly win rounds. Perhaps Hopkins, in his veteran wisdom, was doing just enough to win, but not enough to convince every judge beyond a shadow of a doubt.
That's a convenient narrative for a bad decision, Judge. Doing just enough for Hopkins often meant completely neutralizing his opponent and landing the more telling blows. He wasn't running, he was boxing masterfully. To suggest he didn't convince the judges when he was clearly the more dominant and effective boxer for at least 7 or 8 rounds, maybe more, that's just a stretch. It feels like an excuse for an error, not an explanation.
It's certainly a thin line between effective aggression and missed punches. Judge Paul Smith, who scored at 116-112 for Hopkins, clearly saw what you saw, Marcus. He favored Hopkins' counterpunching and control. But Dwayne Ford and Dave Moretti, who scored at 115-113 for Taylor, must have given Taylor credit for those early rounds and his bursts of activity throughout. It comes down to what you prioritize.
And they prioritized wrong, that's the thing! It wasn't just about early rounds. Hopkins took control from the 4th, 5th round onwards. He was landing those powerful right hands, shaking Taylor. Taylor was never really able to hurt Hopkins, never really put him in danger. Hopkins, on the other hand, was making Taylor think, making him hesitant. That's dominance. That's how you win championship fights.
I remember Hopkins talking about it, and he felt the sentiment that new blood was needed in the division played a role, that perhaps the judges, consciously or subconsciously, wanted to see a new star emerge. It's a cynical view, but not entirely uncommon in boxing, especially in high-profile events. The narrative of the young, undefeated challenger dethroning the aging legend is a compelling one for the sport.
Oh, absolutely. The passing of the torch narrative is a dangerous one when it interferes with objective scoring. Taylor was the Golden Boy Promotions fighter, the next big thing. Hopkins was, well, Hopkins. He was 40, established. The money, the future, it was all with Taylor. I'm not saying it was outright corruption, but the pressure to anoint a new king can definitely sway perceptions, even unconsciously.
It raises questions about judge accountability, doesn't it? When such a monumental decision is met with widespread disagreement, it damages the credibility of the sport. And this wasn't just a regular fight. This was for the undisputed middleweight championship. All the belts on the line. The stakes couldn't have been higher.
It was for history, Judge! Hopkins was looking to extend his legacy even further, and he was denied that in the eyes of many. It definitely hurt the sport's reputation, no doubt about it. You can't have your most dominant champions feeling like they have to knock a guy out to get a decision. It sets a bad precedent.
And the immediate aftermath. Hopkins demanded a rematch, naturally. He truly believed he won, and he wanted to prove it. So a few months later, December 3rd, 2005, they ran it back in Las Vegas. And that time, Taylor won by unanimous decision. A much clearer outcome, 115-113 on all 3 cards.
Which, ironically, made the first fight look even worse. Because in the rematch, Taylor was undeniably better. He adjusted, he was more confident, he controlled the pace more. It wasn't a barn burner, but Taylor earned that second win. But that first fight, man, it just hangs there. It's like a phantom punch that never landed but counted anyway.
So our robbery assessment, debatable. Some observers felt Hopkins won, though the decision was more debatable than some other controversial bouts. Would you agree with debatable, or would you push for something stronger, Marcus?
Oh, I'm pushing hard. I'd call it a highly questionable decision bordering on robbery. For me, it leans heavily towards robbery. When the vast majority of professional analysts, commentators, and even a large segment of the casual viewing public think the wrong guy won, it's more than just debatable. It's a mistake, a big one. It's a stain on the record, not Taylor's, but on the judges' scorecards.
Fair enough. And that's the beauty and the frustration of boxing, isn't it? Subjectivity. We can rewatch these fights 100 times, and people will still see different things. But the Taylor-Hopkins eye fight is a perfect case study for how a seemingly objective scoring system can still produce such contentious results.
Absolutely. It's why we're still talking about it nearly 2 decades later. Bernard Hopkins never truly lost his aura even after that decision, which speaks volumes about how people viewed his performance. And Taylor, while he got the win and went on to have a good career, that first victory will always have an asterisk next to it for many boxing fans. It's a fight that defined both of their careers in different, controversial ways.
Indeed. A truly memorable, if not universally celebrated moment in middleweight history. A fight that reminds us that sometimes, even when a hand is raised, the real winner in the hearts and minds of the fans can be someone else entirely. Thanks for breaking this down with me, Marcus. Always a pleasure.
Anytime, Judge. Anytime we can talk about justice or the lack thereof in the squared circle, I'm there. Until next time, keep your guard up and your eyes on those scorecards.